What is up, everybody, and welcome to Celtics Talk Weekly Postgame Live. I'm your host, Seamus Zarlingo. The Celtics defeat the Cleveland Cavaliers 116 to 107 on the Garden floor tonight behind a stellar Jason Tatum 27-point performance. And, of course, Jaylen Brown, too, adding 22 on top of that. The Celtics defeating the Cleveland Cavaliers for a second straight time in 2 games. A 2-game set, a newly implemented thing in the NBA. Experimented with COVID a couple years ago when they tried to reduce travel, making teams play multiple games together in the same city. But now implemented in the CBA, more matchups we'll see later on in time be these 2-game sets. The Celtics actually have another one coming up on the horizon. The first of a 2-game set coming tomorrow against the Orlando Magic. The second game will be on Sunday. The Celtics, their last 2-game set against the Cleveland Cavaliers, you see on the bottom here, coming off of it with a victory. Both games a victory, Tuesday and Thursday. The Celtics take care of business. And tonight's game, the Celtics, it was a lot better than Tuesday night. Tuesday night's lead tracker, you saw the Celtics took a little bit for them to get into the game, right? Took a while for them to really insert themselves into the game. The Cleveland Cavaliers started on an 18-4 run, turned into a 25-10 run, and then eventually they won the first quarter and then led at halftime before the Celtics came storming back, eventually notching a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, marking a 25-point turnaround in that game. So the Celtics were able to get their legs under them on Tuesday night, but we'd see in tonight's lead tracker on Thursday, the Celtics, this was a wire-to-wire victory. They never trailed in this one. There was a moment in which it was tied in the first quarter. However, the Cleveland Cavaliers never once took the lead in this game at any point in time. And the Celtics, you can see from this lead tracker, it looks a little bit more like the lead tracker we've seen most of the season from the Celtics, where they're leading throughout the entire game. And I know we nitpick some of these lead trackers, and we'll go through this one just a little bit tonight here and nitpick it just a little bit because we do see a couple of dips in here. But overall, to see the Celtics leading wire to wire and a lead tracker be all green, that's what we want to see. This color of green right here, this Celtics Kelly green. We want to see this green on the lead tracker as much as possible, and of course, especially at the end of the lead tracker. And tonight, we see exactly that. The Celtics up at the end and up throughout. But of course, I said I'm going to nitpick this just a little bit. You see there in the third quarter, the Celtics, they let go of the rope just a little bit there in the third quarter after surmounting a little bit of a lead going into half and then sustaining it going into the third quarter. However, you see in the fourth quarter, this is really where the optimism comes into play. The resurmounting of the lead after the third quarter. You see the Cleveland Cavaliers, that little dip right there, that's a 3-point game. Darius Garland, he put the team on the Cavaliers on the right track going into the fourth quarter. He made a couple of buckets, huge buckets at the end of the third quarter, making it an interesting game. Otherwise, you never know. The Celtics could have legitimately ran away with this game. But it was a 3-point game going into the fourth, and that came from Darius Garland leading the Cavaliers. However, you see the Celtics coming back in the fourth quarter. That was Jason Tatum. That was Jason Tatum right there. Jason Tatum in the fourth quarter tonight. Stellar performance. He, I believe, 12 points in the fourth quarter, 27 on the night. He entered the fourth quarter with 15, ended the night with 27, scored 12 in the quarter, and right away, mid-range jump shot, hit 1, 2 points, and then I believe he took a 3, and within the first couple of minutes in the fourth quarter, that was 5 points for Jason Tatum on the board and the Celtics, and you see that lead right there. Boom. Right back up to nearly 10, where it eventually ended for the night. So the Celtics in that fourth quarter, specifically Jason Tatum, and I can't stress this enough, attacking the rim, being aggressive, making defensive stops, getting those stops. That's such a huge thing in the NBA. They were able to resurmount the lead, and that's just what gives you a lot of optimism around now what is the best team, or tied now for the best team in the NBA. But you see there, Jason Tatum, I mentioned him during the lead tracker just now on the screen. I have to talk about him more tonight, and he is ultimately our player of the game for the night. Jason Tatum, 27 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocks. I didn't know if I wanted to do play. I didn't know if I wanted to do player of the game this early. However, Jason Tatum, I mentioned him. He must be mentioned very early on in this show, because that fourth quarter performance was really what we wanted to see out of Jason Tatum, or what we want to see out of Jason Tatum, rather, the entire season. The entire season. And that is attacking and picking his spots with efficiency, with effectiveness. Because you see the Celtics line tonight, right? Just looking at the entire Celtics line, they shoot 36 three-pointers, I believe, on the night. And we've seen the Celtics, Joe Mazzulla, they've come out, and Joe Mazzulla's claimed his goal is to shoot at least 50 three-pointers on the night, right? And how realistic of a goal is that? We don't really know, right? 53 pointers, that's a lot. That's nearly half of your possessions. And the Celtics at the beginning of the season were topping that mark. However, we've seen in the last 2 weeks, about the last 2 weeks, that number has come down just a little bit. And tonight, the Celtics only shoot 36 three-pointers. And I really feel as if the team overall, is picking and choosing their spots better. They're being more aggressive, and their three-point attempts are coming more in rhythm and flow, and they're coming in more efficient spots rather than guys just chucking it up for the fact it's a three. I think guys are more aware at this point in time of their ability to go to the rim and who's playing what role in the offense. And I think it's been clear for most of the season. It's just the fact of guys need to mesh. And Jason Tatum has been a huge part of this. Tonight in the fourth quarter, you saw him being aggressive, going towards the rim. He was able to notch 12 points in the fourth quarter, and that was so huge for the Celtics. You saw going into the fourth, only up 3 points. Only up 3 points. And then not exactly closing the game out near the end. There was still a portion of the game they needed to close the game out, and Jason Tatum came through. He absolutely came through in this one, and you saw one of his better performances, especially late in the game of the season. Jason Tatum attacking the rim, being aggressive, picking his spots, and just being confident, right? Of course, he's an ultra confident player, but that cannot be stated enough within his game going towards the rim. So Jason Tatum, he's our player of the game tonight. However, more players we have to mention. Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown was absolutely spectacular as well tonight for the Celtics. The Celtics, sorry, I'm messing around with this ticker on the side here so we can get the note of Jaylen Brown being questionable with an ankle injury coming into this game. Because Jaylen Brown, I really thought he was going to walk away with player of the game before the fourth quarter. When the fourth quarter came around, I really was preparing the Jaylen Brown graphic. However, Jason Tatum, what he did in the fourth quarter propelled him into that player of the game spot, and Jaylen Brown, second on the night. Second. I wonder, I'm going to have to get with Rob sometime later in the season or this week and discuss, should we do dual player of the games? Because I feel like Brown and Tatum, they can that's really the dual player of the game award, right? Brown and Tatum. That's the one pairing, that's the one duo we're willing to give player of the game to most nights. And Brown could have walked away with player of the game tonight. He was super efficient on the night, 22 points, 10 of 20 shooting, 2 of 5 from 3. He also walked away with 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and only 2 turnovers. Now, we talked about the turnovers a lot early in the season, and we talked about too how Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have improved their turnover numbers in the last couple of games. However, we see it again. Only 2 turnovers from Brown, from Tatum, 3 turnovers. You maybe like 1 or 2 less from either of them. However, you see those numbers, they're not too many, 5 between the both of them, and the team on the night 13, which in this day and age, you do want to see turnover numbers be lower, right? But in this day and age, to see double digit turnovers is not exactly crazy, right? And the Cleveland Cavaliers, they came away with 16 turnovers, but Brown and Tatum only contributing 5 to that. I feel as if they're getting better and better at taking care of the ball. And that's just coming with everybody being more integrated within the offense and feeling more comfortable within their roles as well. And that goes for everybody: Porzingis, Holiday, Derek White, down to the bench, Sam Hauser being in the rotation, Al Horford, of course, too. And all of these guys, they haven't played too much together as of late. Now, I want to classify as of late, though, because as of late, I want to say the last week, actually, the last week they've been able to play together. But Thanksgiving, that range, right? A couple of guys out of the lineup, right? Porzingis dealt with a calf issue. Derek White, Drew Holiday, they were out a couple of games. So now you see all the guys in the same lineup together consistently this past week and a half. The offense looks a lot better, and you see guys Brown and Tatum. They're really able to feed off of that, and so is everybody else within their roles. So Brown tonight, specifically Brown and Tatum. Talk about the turnovers. That's what the conversation was about at first. Both of those guys are getting better, and Brown specifically tonight, he was really 1 through 3 quarters. He really could have been player of the game, but what Jason Tatum did in the fourth, that propelled him up to that spot. So either of these guys tonight could have won that award, but I mean, spectacular performance from the Jays as of usual. That is nothing new. We've seen these guys develop from rookies all the way back in 2016 and 2017, all the way until now. The development is just absolutely incredible. They went from being, wings who were standing in the corner shooting threes to certified superstars. And the development of that is not easy, and the fact they've all been able to do it together in the same location, you don't see that too often in the NBA anymore. And so glad to see these guys game after game and to cover these guys game after game, because the development and now the payoff of what they have become, I mean, absolutely spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. And of course, Jason Tatum winning player of the game tonight. But more players on the Celtics I want to talk about. Somebody that they don't get a lot of talk around Celtics land, I would say. And we've mentioned them a couple times on the post game. However, I personally believe I have a stronger opinion on this right now, right? Lamar Stevens tonight, he plays 8 minutes. He goes 1 of 3, 4 points, plays against his former team. Okay, plays against his former team in the Cleveland Cavaliers, who he played 62 games for last year and was pretty well within their rotation, right? I have no idea why the Boston Celtics have decided, we're not going to play Lamar Stevens. And this is, of course, Joe Mazzulla and the coaching staff behind him. They've decided Lamar Stevens is not going to play because he didn't play the last 4 games. The last game he played before that, he played 21 seconds. So we're talking about garbage time. And before that, he wasn't playing very often either. O'Shea Brissett and Lamar Stevens, they were playing minutes in Indiana and Cleveland before they arrived in Boston. This is just a fact. It's just a fact. And you see the Celtics bench, it is a little bit thin. It's a little bit thin. You know, we this is the thing about the Celtics bench. Okay? The Celtics bench, they are all right for the level of players who they are. But relative to the rest of the league, where the rest of the league's benches are, right? The talent on the rest of the league's benches, they don't really hold a candle. And that's not really their fault because Pritchard, Hauser, Horford, they're all playing well. But then you go and look at Philly's bench, you look at Minnesota's bench, Orlando, Indiana, all teams we've lost to, right? Teams with depth. They have better players to look at off the bench. And the Celtics, I believe Lamar Stevens and O'Shea Brissett could shift that tide just a little bit. How much? I don't know. But a little bit, I'm certain of. Because Lamar Stevens and O'Shea Brissett played minutes for teams before us and made a real impact. And that's ultimately why Brad Stevens brought them in. So why Joe Mazzulla now is deciding to give them no minutes, I don't know. But if this is the start to Lamar Stevens gaining more and more and more minutes, I'm all for it. And look, he only played 8 minutes tonight. He was effective in his 8 minutes. I thought he provided a spark and played well on both ends of the floor. Now, he was 1 of 3, but he still came away with 4 points, got to the free throw line, which is ever so important in this NBA. And defensively, he's not a nobody. He's really not a nobody. He's a solid defender. So I believe Lamar Stevens and O'Shea Brissett, because O'Shea Brissett didn't even play tonight, but Lamar Stevens got the call against his former team. I believe those guys, both of them, should be playing way, 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 way more. Now, when I say that, I should specify way, 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 way more simply means give them some minutes. Give them some minutes, way more than zero. I'm not calling for them to play 30 minutes a game, 25 minutes a game, even 20. Can you insert them into a 10-minute per game role? Luke Cornett, he played 10 minutes per game last year. He's playing a little bit more than that this year. He was out tonight. And you just look at the bench, and I believe you do need a couple, at least one, bigger body off the bench, whether that's a bigger guard, bigger wing, a big, right? Any of those 3 positions. I think you could add a bench piece at any of 3 of those positions. Now, evaluating that behind the scenes, we could definitely, that could be a tangent argument in itself, which position the Celtics need. But you probably need another big body. However, for the time being, you'd think that transaction probably doesn't happen until February. Right now, it's December. There's going to be January. I believe O'Shea Brissett and Lamar Stevens, you got to give them more of a run. And maybe I can see it from a standpoint of we're trying to integrate our guys, our top 6 specifically. And you could even say Pritchard and Hauser as well. They're not in the top 6 best Celtics. However, they're probably 7 and 8, right? Those guys, I could see an argument where you want to integrate those guys together more often. As I just said, guys are coming off of injury. You have these guys available more often right now, and you can play them together, right? And that may be why you don't give minutes to Stevens and Brissett, right? However, as the Celtics move forward, I want to see Lamar Stevens and O'Shea Brissett get a little bit more of a run, like we saw with Lamar Stevens tonight. I thought this opportunity for Lamar Stevens was perfect, quite honestly, perfect. Against his former team, 8 minutes, came off the bench, and played well. He played well. So shout out to Lamar Stevens. coming off the bench tonight and being ready off of really not playing for quite a while now, and who knows what his role will be in the rotation going forward. But I personally think it should be, you know, get him a couple more minutes uh, later on down the line. But for a couple more guys up further on the salary sheet, right near the top, Drew Holiday, 7 of 11, 15 points tonight. Drew Holiday, the last two games, you can see he is another player who is getting his feet under him. He missed a couple games earlier in the season, a couple weeks ago, with a sprained ankle, and now I don't think we think about that as fans very often, where a player is injured and coming off of an injury and he's just inserted into the lineup, and we all kind of just assume, okay, he's healthy, he's ready to go, let's go. He's playing basketball, he's healthy, he's out there, they played him, he's ready to go, let's go. Fully 100%, let's go. But the reality is, when a player comes off an injury, how 100% are they going to be? They might be 100% to play, but they might not be feeling 100% within whatever injury they may have, whether that's an ankle injury, knee injury, whatever that may be. And so, Drew Holiday, coming off that ankle injury, um, now you see a couple of performances in a row where he has dominated uh, moments of the game on both ends of the floor, specifically on the defensive end of the ball, where we all know Drew Holiday makes his biggest impact. And I almost wonder if that's because he's feeling more and more healthy coming off the ankle injury. And two, as I mentioned it many times in the show, the offense is becoming more and more comfortable together with each other. And I think Drew Holiday, he's going to be a big part of that, because in Milwaukee, I believe in Milwaukee, he was asked at times, if Middleton was out of the lineup, if Giannis was ever out of the lineup, there were moments in which both of those guys were out of the lineup, or specifically other players. Drew Holiday, he was asked to play a bigger offensive role. And I think in the Celtics offense, even if one guy were to go out, I don't think Drew Holiday is going to have as big of a role, or be asked to have as big of a role as he saw in Milwaukee at times in Boston now. So I think Drew Holiday finding his new role here with the Celtics, I think he's going to be more and more comfortable, and we're going to see a more efficient Drew Holiday as we move forward into the season, because I think being in this offense with the superstars around him and with the offensive talent around him, that's only going to make him better and propel his numbers from where they were in Milwaukee the last couple of seasons. And the last two games, specifically against the Cleveland Cavaliers, I believe is pointing that out just a little bit. And we'll see how that trend goes going into the future. However, the last two games, you definitely have to give Drew Holiday praise for what he's done. Another guy I want to talk about with the Celtics, Kristaps Porzingis. Now, this is kind of an interesting conversation, because he came into tonight's game, with calf tightness, right? Came in questionable. And these calf injuries, man, these calf injuries are tough. These hamstring injuries are tough. Any muscle injury in the leg is tough, right? Because you don't really know when you're fully healthy from it, right? Because you can sit down, you feel great, right? When you're rehabbing these injuries, right? Whether it's a hamstring or calf, when you're sitting down and you're just nothing, you feel great, feels fine, right? And you might walk around, feels fine. But when you explode, when you go and run, right? When you cut and run consistently over and over and over and over again, that is when you start noticing, like, oh, okay, I might not be 100%, right? And it's so hard to tell until you really test, right, over and over and over again, your legs. And it's just tough coming off the calf and hamstring injuries, those muscle injuries, those leg muscle injuries, the strains, for these guys to come back and really feel 100%. And this this report, right, Porzingis being questionable, I'm not so certain if it's injury management or him being questionable because he's actually experienced tightness in his calf. Now, I'm hoping it's the first scenario because if he's actually experiencing tightness in his calf, I don't want to say that's a real problem because it's not a real problem yet, but we've seen in the past lingering injuries. They have not been great to the Celtics at all. Lingering injuries are not great to the Celtics. They haven't been great to the Celtics. Ian and I sat on here the other day, 2 days ago, and we listed out the Celtics for the last 8 years. Every single year, one important rotation player, legitimately star level player, has been out due to an injury. And Porzingis, we see he missed 8 games, or sorry, not 8 games, 4 games. I don't know what I'm talking about. 4 games with calf tightness. And now he comes back and he's questionable. Comes back, plays a couple games, looks okay, looked great in the Knicks game, right? He looked great in the Knicks game, came back against them. Cavaliers game the other night, doesn't shoot all that efficient. And then tonight comes in questionable. And I'm wondering if he's fully back from the injury or, like the scenario I threw out before, could this be injury management? And by injury management, I mean this. The Celtics are playing tomorrow night. Could the Celtics be setting up the scene for Porzingis tomorrow night against the Orlando Magic? He's not going to play, right? Because of his calf tightness. We could see the Celtics, they add him to the injury report tonight, and then tomorrow, it's like, okay, he's not going to play now. You see, he clearly has calf tightness. But what's weird about that is that's only really a theory of showing the league that he's actually injured, right? And not just resting. But I don't understand why, if the Celtics were gonna, if the Celtics were gonna manage this injury, right? Why wouldn't they just sit him tonight? Why wouldn't they just sit him tonight against the Cavs and then play him against Orlando tomorrow? Or I guess what they want is to play him tonight versus the Cavs, sit him against Orlando tomorrow, and then have that rest. It'll be Friday, Saturday, 2 day rest in between games for a Sunday game. However, either way, you're going either one game, 2 days rest, one game, 1 day rest, one game, or you're going one game to, I don't know if you guys are following this or not. I don't know. I feel like I'm getting so off track with this, but what I'm trying to get at here is the Celtics, either way, if this is injury management, it doesn't really make any sense. Uh, Either way, it's kind of the same. And I don't know, maybe they want him to have 2 days rest after this Cavaliers series and believe that Orlando is a tougher matchup than the Cavaliers and want him to play against the Cavs. I'm not really sure what the philosophy would be for that injury management scenario. However, I hope that's the case. But if we see him not play, or sorry, see him play tomorrow against the Orlando Magic, I want to be almost worried for the fact of he really was questionable with calf tightness tonight, and it wasn't just some kind of injury management situation. And from that standpoint, I don't know if he should be playing in a back to back if he's dealing with calf tightness, because guess who else dealt with calf tightness? Aaron Rodgers. Now, I want to say that was a completely different situation, of course, because he was tackled and his leg was twisted a little bit awkwardly. However, we see calf tightness many times in sports history. I'm sure I could bring up many other examples um, related to the Achilles. It's connected to the Achilles. You don't want the Achilles busting on an NBA player, especially a big guy. And Those injuries are just tough to come back from. They take about a year. Porzingis, if he were to deal with an Achilles injury, probably wouldn't be back until next Christmas if he were to sustain it now. And even then, what are the chances he's going to come back full Porzingis, right? Full Kristaps Porzingis, in which we know and love right now. So dealing with this cap tightness issue at the moment, I think the Celtics they need to tread the water cautiously because these things are no joke, and we've seen in the past they've bitten other players in sports, and they've certainly bitten the Celtics in the past. So Kristaps Porzingis, he was 5 of 11 tonight, 1 of 6 from three, continues to struggle a bit from 3 point land. I expect those numbers to be a little bit better because you do look at his 3 point attempts and go, he's getting good looks. He's getting good looks. He's just not quite knocking them down, but 8 free throws for the night. That's the biggest part of Porzingis's game. I feel as if is shining through on the Celtics right now is his ability to get to the free throw line. You see 18 points tonight, and 7 of those came from free throws. If he doesn't take 8 free throw attempts and make 7 of them, you're talking about an 11-point night, and he's 5 of 11. Probably gets a lot more slack than an 18-point night on a 5 of 11 shooting night. So Porzingis comes into the night with calf tightness, it is questionable, and plays 30 minutes and plays fairly well for what his standards are on the Celtics. Not a boisterous game by any matter, but you see Brown and Tatum when they're having their nights, they're in rhythm and they're going. Porzingis can really stand in the back and play that third guy role and see 18 points on the night. And 1 of 6, you got to think too, if he just goes 2 of 6 or 3 of 6, I mean, that's an over 20-point game. That's 21, 24 points. And this is a much different game. Other guys, Derek White, mention him real quick. 5 of 10 on the night, 14 points. All of the starters for the Celtics tonight in double figures. You love to see that. You love to see the distribution around the board. The bench, I can't say the same for, although Sam Hauser had 9 points on 3 of 3 shooting, and all 3 of those came from 3 point land. Sam Hauser. This is what we're talking about with Sam Hauser. When he was 1 of 5 last week, and we mentioned him on the post game. I believe he still had. I don't want to say his exact. I don't want to guess his stat line for this game, but there was a game in which he was 1 of 5, but still made a fairly big impact and played a lot of minutes and a lot of effective minutes for the Celtics. Tonight you see 18 minutes from Sam Hauser, 9 points, 3 of 3. Small role for the Celtics. You see some of his minutes be distributed to Lamar Stevens and even to the starting lineup, Derek White and Drew Holiday. They played a lot of minutes tonight, 37 and 35 for them, and Brown and Tatum both played 36. So you see Sam Hauser's minutes go down just a little bit, but he was very efficient in those minutes. And that was just one of those nights where he made all of his shots. You saw that 1 of 5 night. It just wasn't going down. However, he was still being effective in rebounding the ball and even defensively for what he could do. Tonight, he's making his shots. He's that efficient player out on the floor, and he's just doing what the Celtics need him to do in his role. Like I said with this bench, these guys are doing what they need to do in their roles. However, you just look at the rest of the league, you just have more talent out there. But for the talent the Celtics have, they're being maximized for what they are at the moment. Looking on the other side, I don't know if I want to talk about any more individual Celtics. You could talk about Al Horford tonight because he just missed the double-double. 7 points, 10 rebounds for Al Horford. Just missed the double-double tonight. 3 assists, 1 block as well. 3 of 4 from the floor. 1 of 2 from 3 for Al Horford. So just missed the double-double. Al Horford, again, we've given him so much praise on this post-game show, but to be playing 23 minutes and to be contributing the way he does for the Celtics, a little bit easier of an assignment this time around for Al Horford because Evan Mobley did not play in either of these games for the Cleveland Cavaliers. So a less big man presence for the Cavs in these games. However, Al Horford's still making his impact known against Cleveland. However, looking at Cleveland, looking at the other side of this game, the Celtics opponent tonight, the Cleveland Cavaliers. I always on these post game shows on Celtics post game, we want to talk about the Celtics straight up off the bat, right? However, talking about opponents, I believe, is so important because there's a chance we'll see them later on down the line. And why not just talk about other teams who come through, other franchises who come through the arena, come through the garden, and of course we face. And to have this film of us talking about it, right? The Cavaliers. This team to me might be one of the more inefficient teams in the NBA. And whether that's due to the personnel, whether that's due to the coaching, whether that's due to maybe their lack of use of analytics or their analytics department, or I just don't know what it is. I don't really have, actually, personally, I should say this. I don't have any numbers to back up this claim. I just can see what I see. And on the shot chart, it doesn't look particularly great for the Cavaliers. It really doesn't. And their shot chart to me, they don't take enough corner threes at all. And yes, they have Max Strus, who they signed. They have Donovan Mitchell, Karis LeVert. Um, I I don't see the efficiency within their offense that's needed for a championship run for 4 rounds. I just don't see it. Uh, what's good for them is, and this is well, Evan Mobley's out, so maybe a little bit of asterisk here, but I think their rebounding is good around the rim. They do get a lot of shots around the rim, and that is good. However, Celtics did out rebound them both games. Like I said, Evan Mobley out both games. This team doesn't generate enough corner threes. They don't generate enough spot up threes, in my opinion. And you see a lot of their attempts. There's a lot of isolation attempts from Donovan Mitchell, from Karis LeVert. And I'm not a huge fan of their offense at this point in time. And it looks a little clunky. It looks a lot clunky at this stage. And we'll see if the Cavaliers can add or subtract at the deadline with their roster. However, I'm just I was a lot higher on this team last season. I thought they'd be able to make it work a lot better, adding in Donovan Mitchell. Of course, they had a breakout year in 21-22, added Donovan Mitchell last year. And, Donovan Mitchell, for as great of a player as I think he is, I think you have to have 100% the right pieces around him to win. And then that pretty much makes him, he puts him in the category of player where, is this guy, can he be the first guy on a championship team? He might need to be the second, maybe even needs to be the third. I think he's probably a second guy at this point. He's probably in that Jaylen Brown range of player where I think Brown and Tatum on the same team, they're like fire and ice. They're like peanut butter and jelly. They go together. Okay, they go together. Brown and Tatum go together. Mitchell, he I don't he needs that other guy, right? He needs that other guy. Brown has Tatum. I think Brown on his own, there were rumors about him going to sign with the Houston Rockets this offseason. I think if he were to go to Houston, now, would Houston be a little bit better than they are right now? Probably just a little bit, right? However, I still don't think that they would be a high level beating Denver, right? Beating Phoenix, beating Sacramento, beating all of the teams, Dallas, OKC, any team at the top there in the Western Conference. That's what I kind of feel for Donovan Mitchell right now. As his singular self, as a star, I think he needs someone better next to him, just someone better. And I think he needs the right pieces around him too, because this Cavs team, I see a little bit too much me ball sometimes. And I don't know him and Darius Garland fit in the same offensive system necessarily. I both think they need the ball a lot, and I just I think this team needs a little bit more wings. They need a couple more wings for sure, and they're just a bit thin in the category of versatility and shooting per se, and spot up shooting, and guys who can catch and shoot and not just shoot off the dribble. Now, Max Strus, you could say that was a definite move in the right direction, signing him, but the rest of the roster certainly needs some work. And I think you really saw without Evan Mobley, these two games coming in against the Celtics took care of business, I thought, pretty handily. Now, in the first game, the Cavaliers came out shooting well. Celtics came out pretty lopsided, right? However, that game, the Celtics get back on track, and you never really thought that the Celtics were going to blow that game. This one, you didn't really feel the Cavaliers' presence either. And to me, those are the kind of things that, you know, a championship team, you feel those kind of teams. When we face Denver, it's competition. When we face LA, it's competition. When we face Miami, these are all championship level teams. The Cavaliers, I I don't fear the Cavaliers. I don't think the competitive, now I feel like the competitive edge is there between Mitchell, Brown, and Tatum. However, the Cavaliers as a team, I just I don't really fear them as a team in a playoff series per se, and I don't really feel as if they're efficient either as a squad offensively enough to go up against a team like the Celtics, who are efficient with a lot of scorers like Brown and Tatum, and guys who can shoot a three like Derek White, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, and of course Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, Al Horford as a big guy off the bench. So you look at the Celtics, what they're able to do in their versatility and shooting. Cavaliers just don't have it. They just simply don't have it, and it was on full display tonight. That being said, though, Donovan Mitchell, 12 of 24, 31 points. He was spectacular in these two games against the Celtics. That is something the Cavaliers have going for them, is Donovan Mitchell is playing very well. I just think the rest of the roster around him needs a little bit of work. And if that doesn't situate itself out, maybe they're looking at attaining a couple of assets for Donovan Mitchell. Who knows later on down the line? But Mitchell was great in both games against the Celtics, and I think that is always a bright spot for the Cavaliers. Karis LeVert too, 9 of 16, 26 points against the Celtics. He's usually a Celtics killer, and we all know a couple years ago, right before COVID, literally, it was maybe a week, 2 weeks before COVID, it was 10 days before COVID, 51 points from Karis LeVert while he was on the Nets, and a huge fourth quarter comeback in which, I mean, if you're a member of Celtics Nation at that moment and you're in every single night, oh my goodness, that Nets game, the Nets game, Karis LeVert. I mean, it's a game I never want to see again. I don't want to see the film of it. I don't want to. I don't want to ever see a game like that out of the Celtics again. To blow such a lead against such an opponent, because they had KD and Kyrie at this point in time too. Neither of them were playing. Neither of them were playing against such an opponent, to blow such a lead and to give up such like 51 points. And we're talking in 2019-20. This is, now I want to say the NBA was the pace of the NBA was definitely rising at that point in time, but it certainly wasn't like it is today, even 4 years, 3 years later on down the line, where now teams are just going absolutely insane. And 51 points for a player like Karis LeVert, we know he's a flamethrower, but 51, I mean, that performance was certainly something to behold and an all-time performance for any Celtics killer on the Garden floor. But Karis LeVert, you see to this day half of those points tonight, 26 for Karis LeVert. Uh, Unfortunately for him, though, Cavaliers not coming out on top, losing by 9, 116, 107. Not really sure what else I want to talk about here. Um, I don't know. Been on here a long while, post game. I didn't know I was going to be able to fill this much time again, but it looks like I'm going to be able to. However, we do have another post game segment coming up less than 24 hours from now. The Celtics and the Magic facing off against each other. And I do want to talk about that matchup coming up. Um, just looking up and down the score sheet for the Celtics and Cavs real quick to make sure we hit everything that we wanted to hit. Cavs 39 bench points tonight from them. Celtics only 20, kind of highlighting that bench discrepancy right there a little bit. But I'm sure there's another game where that'll be a little bit more impactful for us to discuss. However, the games coming up, right? The Orlando Magic coming up on the Celtics schedule. Now, the Orlando Magic, they're a tough team. Okay, they're a tough team. They have a lot of young players. They have a couple of veteran players too, who I always believe if you mix in the correct veteran players, now it can't just be any teams. Just sometimes mix in random veteran players, random veteran leadership with squads, and expect the world. Some veterans, I'll say this, it's a big thing in the NBA. Some veterans accept the role of bringing young players along. Other veterans, they want to get paid again. They want a role of their own. And if you bring in those type of veterans to lead your young guys, you're severely misguided. Well, the Orlando Magic, I believe they have the right veterans in place. And ultimately, the Celtics, they're about to go up in a 2-game series against the Orlando Magic at home, both games. I don't know what the NBA was doing with the Celtics schedule. They had us play the Cavaliers 2 games in a row at home. Now the Magic 2 games in a row at home. We kind of talked about it in the CBA, but to have them back to back like that is a little weird, especially at home. And that's just what the Celtics have to face. And coming into this little Magic series, right? This mini Magic series, the Celtics are going up against a team they haven't beaten in 4 straight games now. And the record against them in the last however many games spanning back now half a decade plus is not too great. It's really not great. Whether the Magic are fielding a quality roster like they are now or not, like the last maybe couple of years, even though they had Vucevic, Terrence Ross, all those guys, right? No matter what, the Magic have been able to get under the Celtics' skin and cause problems for them. And with this new squad, I'm particularly, I don't want to say worried, but I'm particularly concerned that the Celtics will have more problems with the Magic this weekend, as they've seen the last 4 games, and particularly 2 on Black Friday, especially on Black Friday. So coming into this game against the Magic, I think, these 2 games rather against the Magic, I think what the Celtics need to do is number one, prepare themselves mentally correctly for both of these games because I think these games are going to be competitions. They're going to be competitions. The Celtics are 12-0 at home. They're 12-0 at home right now. They're facing a young, hungry Magic team. And I personally believe the Magic are going to use that 12-0. Hey, look, the Celtics are 12-0 at home. Let's go knock them off the pedestal. Let's go give them their first home loss. We have 2 chances here. Let's go give them their first home loss. I think they're going to use a little bit of that as motivation. I think the Celtics have to be ready for the amount of competition coming into the game, because the last time we saw in Orlando, the Celtics in the third quarter, once the heat was turned up, Celtics were content sitting back with themselves and just kind of floating. And they didn't really compete in that game. I didn't feel once they lost the lead, they held the lead in that game. They did. They held a double digit lead in that game in Orlando. After they lost it, after the Orlando Magic came back and grabbed their own double digit lead, the game was completely over. The Celtics didn't have anything left in the tank. And I believe this time around, the Celtics, they have to prepare for that surge again, because we saw tonight against the Cavaliers that surge happened. They were able to counteract it, sustain themselves in the fourth quarter. Like I said earlier, Jason Tatum was such a huge part of that. And they came out with the W. Now against the Magic, that surge is going to be for real. The Magic have a bunch of 6'10", long, versatile defenders who can shoot the ball and play make for others. They have those guys. I believe the Orlando Magic, looking at their roster, might be a little bit better than Cleveland. Just saying, might be a little bit better than Cleveland. You know, teams, they move up and down the rankings. Cleveland, they grab the attention of everybody the last 2 years, but Orlando, they make moves, they develop. I think we always forget too, young guys, especially like Paulo and Franz Wagner, those guys we've seen with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they can come back the next season, and just their development alone can uplift a team. And it doesn't have to be the additions around them, it can just be their development alone. So I think the Orlando Magic, from Paulo, from Franz's development, from Cole Anthony's development, from Jalen Suggs' development, they're a completely new team. I think they're a better team than the team we just faced in the Cavaliers. And they're going to give the Celtics real competition. And mentally, this weekend, the Celtics have to insert themselves into the competitive playing field when that adversity strikes. And I do have a little bit more confidence that the Celtics will be able to do that at home because of their home record and the fact the home crowd, they have fed off the home crowd and their momentum a couple of times this season, more than a couple of times, to go ahead and pull out a win. So against the Orlando Magic, 4-0-4 rather for the Celtics. The Magic are 4-0 in the last four matchups. You really look at that playoff series wise, that's a sweep. That's a playoff sweep. Thankfully, that wasn't a playoff series, but that's a playoff sweep. Um, but the Celtics in those games, the Magic, a lot more energy than them, and a lot more intensity, just a lot more want. So I think the Celtics, if they want to keep their perfect home record clean, right, after this weekend, we're looking at it on Monday, hoping we're coming in here. Well, we'll be coming in here on Sunday, but coming into the building like football teams do for Victory Monday, we're hoping that happens going forward. And the Celtics want to do that. They have to bring their intensity. They have to bring mentally. They have to be ready mentally, rather. And Orlando, they're tough. I gotta say, they're tough. They have a lot of young guys who play hard, and it's 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 very interesting because in these type of matchups, right? This is really the new versus the prime, right? The Celtics are the prime team. If you look up and down the roster, the Celtics, they're at their prime ages, right? Jason Tatum is inching into his prime. Jaylen Brown is at his prime, right? Derek White, Drew Holiday. You can say Drew Holiday might be at the back end of the best years of his prime. Al Horford, he's not quite in his prime, but he's closer to that than, being completely out of the league, right? So you have all of these guys in their prime, and you're going up against a team like the Orlando Magic, who are now, this is the Celtics in 17-18. Now, those Celtics were a little bit different because they had Kyrie, Hayward, and it was like, okay, we're developing young superstars, but also we're competing with in the day superstars. It was like a mix of both, but the Celtics were coming onto the scene, right, in those days as a young team, and this is what the Magic are doing right now. This is really their come out season, I believe. Last season was a development year for them, right? They had a lot of young players developing. They played well throughout the season, and coming into this year, I think they're going to be a playoff team. They're going to be a legitimate playoff team who goes and faces somebody in the first round and could give a team a legitimate headache in the first round. Maybe even later on in the season, we look, they're a top 4 seed still. They win a first round playoff series. You never know, like Memphis a couple of years ago during their breakout year with Ja Morant. So I think the Orlando Magic, this is their breakout year. I wouldn't now to say they have no chance at winning the title. Even the Pistons at this point have a chance, although albeit very small. But I wouldn't say that the Orlando Magic, I don't believe they have a chance to win the title. However, they have a chance to make some noise in the playoffs. And the Celtics, their team, has title aspirations. This is a team that if the Celtics don't win it this season, and the Magic, of course, they don't win it this season, you never know. Next season, the Magic could be right there with the Celtics competing with them. So these kind of matchups are quite interesting in the league for certain, and I'm looking forward to it this weekend in Boston. The Celtics and the Magic going at it. There's really, you know, looking at the playing field. I don't know. It's not really much more I can say about this other than I'm just looking forward and excited to the game, both games coming up, and I'm just quite interested in the approach which is going to be taken. Jaylen Brown mentioned, Joe Mazzulla approached the Cavaliers series like a mini playoff series. I believe they'll do the same with the Magic series, but this one is certainly. I think it's going to be a little bit more challenging for the Celtics to keep their perfect home record against such a talented uprising team, an ascending team rather, in the Eastern Conference, a team that certainly wants to knock off the Celtics. But uh, that is pretty much it for me here today or rather tonight, I should say, on the Celtics Talk Weekly post game show. Wrote it solo here tonight, but we'll have more guys on tomorrow for the Magic game, and we should be on after the final buzzer and not later on late night like we are here tonight. However, I thought today's show went all right. We filled an hour. We filled an hour, right? Think we can say uh, the show went well. I don't know. My brain is pretty fried after talking for an hour straight. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I need a co-host right here next to me. I don't have anybody to point to today, but I really got this nice Christmas tree back here though. See? Yeah. I don't know. But I don't know. I'm going nuts here on this post game show. And I don't know. That's all you got from me here tonight. The Celtics, of course, beating the Cleveland Cavaliers 116 to 107 on the Garden floor, moving to 12-0 at home. 12-0, I believe. Now, I don't know what the official number is for this because I don't have the full data spectrum, right? But I read an article from 2015 after the game ended tonight, from when the Warriors in 2015 went 12-0 on their home floor in that 2015-16 season where they eventually won 73 games. Crazy. Celtics still in line for that, just saying. 18-5, only 4 more losses, just saying. But the Celtics, they may be the 8th team in NBA history to ever be 12-0, to start the season 12-0 at home. That Warriors team was the 7th. However, that was in 2015. So we, of course, had, 8 seasons, 9 seasons since then. So there's definitely a possibility one, two, maybe even three teams have started out 12 and 0, start out 12 and 0 at home in that time frame. And the Celtics are now, say, the 10th, 11th. But regardless, the Celtics, they're in some pretty elite category. They're in a pretty elite category with some teams regarding their home record to start this season. And like I said, that 2015 article, the Warriors were the seventh team in NBA history to start out 12 and 0. The Celtics, they own four of those teams before 2015, and one of those teams was the 2008 Celtics, who won the title. So the Boston Celtics, this team, they're putting up some pretty historic numbers at home to start the season, and they'll continue to play at home this weekend against the Orlando Magic. Like I mentioned, a two-game set, a two-game series, a mini series coming up against the Orlando Magic. But for tonight, the Boston Celtics, they defeat the Cleveland Cavaliers 116-107 for their 18th win of the season, 18-5 now on the year. And that's all for me. I'm your host, Seamus Zarlingo, aka Celtics Every Day. Go follow us all down here. You see on the ticker, all of us on our social medias, our Instagram pages down here. Go follow us, go hit us up for more Celtics coverage. But that's all I have for you here tonight on the Celtics Talk Weekly postgame show. And as I always say, signing off, go Celtics.